I was standing behind the cash register at Miller's Thrift when I saw him walk through the door.
Tall.
Navy coat. Shoes that cost more than my rent. He wasn't browsing. He was hunting. His eyes locked on mine. My hand started shaking, not from fear, but from the weakness that came with the chemo pills I'd swallowed that morning. I grabbed the counter to steady myself, pretending to organize the receipts. He walked straight toward me, weaving past the racks of donated coats and stacks of used books. No smile. No hesitation. "Are you Mary Halden?" His voice was calm, professional.
My throat went dry.
Nobody called me by my full name anymore. Not since the divorce. Not since Gerald took everything and left me with medical bills I couldn't pay. "Yes," I whispered. "Do I know you? Have you ever had a stranger show up and completely change your life in a single sentence? Drop a comment if you've ever felt that shift coming before it even happened." He reached into his coat pocket. For a second, I thought process server. Another bill collector. Maybe even something worse. But what he pulled out was a cream-colored envelope with gold lettering. "Mrs. Halden," he said, his tone shifting to something almost gentle. "My name is Arthur Bellamy. I represent the estate of Henry Delacroix." The name meant nothing to me. I stared at the envelope like it might explode. "Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story." "I don't understand," I said. My vision was starting to blur at the edges, probably dehydration from throwing up breakfast again. He opened the envelope carefully, pulling out a single sheet of paper. His eyes scanned it once before he looked back at me. "Mrs. Halden, you've been named as the sole beneficiary of Mr. Delacroix's estate." I blinked. "I don't know anyone by that name." "He knew you." Arthur's expression softened. "And he never forgot what you did for him." My knees buckled. I gripped the counter harder. "How much?" I heard myself ask even though it felt ridiculous. People like me didn't get inheritance calls. We got eviction notices. Arthur folded the paper and met my eyes directly. $28 million. The room tilted sideways. The fluorescent lights above me buzzed louder, then softer. I felt my fingers slip off the counter. The last thing I heard before everything went white was the distant ding of the cash register and Arthur's voice calling my name. When I woke up on the floor, surrounded by concerned faces and the smell of dust and old fabric, I knew one thing for certain. My life had just split into two parts, before this moment, and whatever came after. But what I didn't know yet was that the man who'd left me to die alone was about to come crawling back, and the choice I'd have to make would define everything. I wasn't always the woman who fainted in thrift stores. There was a time when I believed in forever. When I thought love meant safety. When Gerald Halden looked at me like I was the only woman in the world. We met at a church fundraiser in 1981. He had sawdust in his hair and calluses on his hands from building houses. I was 23, working at the public library, living with two roommates in a cramped apartment that smelled like burned toast. "You're Mary, right?" he'd said, offering me a glass of punch. "The girl who knows every book ever written." Idelauga. Not every book, just the good ones. He built our first house himself. Every beam, every nail, every window frame. I'd watch him work in the summers, sweat soaking through his shirt, that stubborn determination in his jaw. "This is ours, Mary girl," he'd say. "Nobody can take this from us." I believed him. We had two kids, Eleanor, who collected seashells and stray days, and Miles, who inherited his father's hands and his pride. I stayed home, cooked every meal from scratch, clipped coupons, stretched every dollar until it screamed. I thought devotion was the same as security. Back then, our kitchen smelled like coffee and cedar. Gerald would kiss my forehead before leaving for work. Eleanor would practice piano while Miles built towers with blocks on the living room floor. If you've ever believed someone would never leave you, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Comment below if you felt that kind of trust. I didn't see the cracks forming. Or maybe I did, and I just kept plastering over them with hope. The first sign was small, a receipt for a restaurant I'd never been to. Then cologne I didn't recognize on his collar. Late nights that turned into overnight trips. "You're imagining things," he'd say whenever I asked. "You've always been paranoid, Mary."
So I stopped asking.
I learned to sleep alone in our bed, the mattress cold on his side. I learned to smile at church when people asked how we were doing. I learned that silence can be louder than screaming. By the time Eleanor graduated high school, Gerald barely came home at all. Miles started looking at me with pity. Even my own son knew something I was too afraid to admit. The truth was rotting underneath everything we'd built, and I was the only one pretending not to smell it. But the day I found out just how deep the betrayal went, that's when everything I thought I knew about my life shattered into pieces too small to ever put back together. Mrs. Loring caught me watering the roses one Tuesday afternoon. She lived next door, had gray hair always pulled into a tight bun, and a face that couldn't hide bad news. "Mary, dear," she said, leaning over the fence. Her hands were trembling. "I saw Gerald yesterday, at the Oak Diner." I kept watering. He mentioned a business lunch. He was with a woman. Her voice dropped. A young woman.
Blonde.
She kissed him before they got into his truck. The hose slipped from my hand. Water pooled around my shoes. "You must be mistaken," I said, but my voice sounded hollow even to me. "Mrs. Loring touched my arm. "I'm so sorry, honey. I thought you should know." That night, I waited up. Gerald came home at 11, smelling like perfume and lies. "Who is she?" I asked from the couch. He froze in the doorway. "Who's who?" "The woman you were with at the Oak Diner." His face hardened.
No guilt. No shame.
Just irritation. "Her name's Clarissa. She's a business associate. We were discussing property investments." He loosened his tie. "Stop being so insecure, Mary. It's exhausting. Have you ever been told you're crazy for believing your own eyes? Let me know in the comments, because that gaslighting nearly destroyed me. I wanted to believe him.
God, I wanted to so badly.
But you can't share a bed with someone for 40 years and not know when they're lying. You can't build a life with someone and not feel when the foundation cracks. I started watching. Quietly. Carefully. I found receipts for jewelry I never received. Hotel charges on credit cards I didn't know existed. Text messages he'd forgotten to delete. Messages that made my stomach turn inside out. "Can't wait to see you tonight, baby. Wear that dress I bought you." I sat on the bathroom floor, phone in my shaking hands, and realized my entire marriage had been a performance. And I'd been the only one who didn't know it was fake. 1 week later, I found the divorce papers. They were hidden under our tax returns in his filing cabinet, a place he knew I'd eventually look. His signature was already there. Dated. Notarized. He'd planned this for months. When he came home that evening, I was sitting at the kitchen table with the papers spread out in front of me. "When were you going to tell me?" My voice was steady.
Cold.
He didn't even look surprised. Just tired. I was waiting for the right time. He poured himself a drink. "But I guess this works too." 42 years, Gerald. My hands were flat on the table to keep them from shaking. 42 years I gave you. I raised your children. I kept your home. I believed in you. He took a long sip. "You held me back, Mary. All those years of penny pinching and playing it safe. Clarissa sees my potential. She believes I can be more." The words hit like a slap. More than what? More than a husband? More than a father? He set down his glass. "I need freedom. I'm 59 years old, and I feel like I've been in prison." Prison. Our home. Our life.
Me.
"You can keep the house," he said. "I'm being generous." But what he didn't tell me, what I'd discover only after the lawyers got involved, was that he'd already sold 2 of our rental properties. Properties we'd bought together. Properties with my name on the deed. He'd forged my signature. Taken the money. Funneled it into accounts I couldn't touch. By the time I hired a lawyer, the damage was done. The money was gone. And Gerald was living in a condo downtown with Clarissa Dunn, the blonde realtor who'd helped him steal my future. The front door closed behind him for the last time on a Thursday. I watched through the window as he loaded his boxes into Clarissa's car. He didn't look back once. I stood there until the taillights disappeared, and then I collapsed onto the floor, and cried until I couldn't breathe. If you've ever been left behind after giving everything, you know that kind of pain. Drop a like if you've survived betrayal, because what happened next nearly killed me. The months after Gerald left blurred together like rain on a windshield. Eleanor stopped returning my calls. When I finally reached her, her voice was distant, polite. Dad says you're being difficult about the divorce. Maybe you should just sign the papers and move on, Mom.
Move on.
As if 42 years could be folded up and thrown away like old newspapers. Miles was worse. He drove over one Sunday, sat in the living room that his father had built, and said, "Dad's happy now. Can't you just be happy for him?" I stared at my son, my baby boy who I'd rocked to sleep every night for years, and realized he'd chosen sides. And I wasn't on his. "Get out," I whispered.
He left.
They all left. The house felt enormous and suffocating at the same time. Every room held memories that now felt like lies. The kitchen where we'd celebrated birthdays. The bedroom where we'd whispered promises. The porch where Gerald had proposed. All of it tainted. I stopped eating. Food tasted like cardboard. I'd make coffee in the morning and forget to drink it. By evening, I'd realize I hadn't eaten all day and couldn't remember why it mattered. Then came the lump. I found it in the shower one morning, small, hard, wrong. I stood there with water running down my back, my hand pressed against my breast, and thought, this is how it ends. The mammogram confirmed it. Stage 2 breast cancer. Aggressive. Needed immediate treatment. I sat in the doctor's office, staring at the pamphlets about chemotherapy and survival rates, and felt nothing. No fear.
No anger.
Just a strange, hollow acceptance. "Do you have family who can support you through this?" the doctor asked gently. I thought about Eleanor's cold voice. Miles's betrayal. Gerald's new life. "No," I said. "I don't." Would you believe I called him anyway? Even after everything, some stupid part of me thought Gerald would care that I was dying. I dialed his number with shaking hands. It rang twice before someone picked up. But it wasn't Gerald's voice. "Hello." Clarissa's voice was bright, cheerful. Music played in the background. "I need to speak to Gerald," I said. "It's Mary." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, Mary. Gerald's busy right now. We're hosting a dinner party. Can this wait? I have cancer." The words came out flat. Silence. Then, quieter, I heard her say to someone, "It's his ex-wife. She says she has cancer." Muffled conversation. Then Clarissa's voice came back, sharper now. "Listen, Mary. Gerald's moved on. He's got his own family now, his own life. You need to stop calling here and deal with your problems yourself." The line went dead. I sat there holding the phone, staring at the wall, and felt something inside me break that I didn't know could still break. Maybe this was it. Maybe I was supposed to fade away quietly, forgotten by everyone who'd once promised to love me forever. I dropped the phone on the couch and didn't move for 3 hours. If you've ever felt abandoned when you needed someone most, I see you. Comment below, because what I'm about to tell you proves that sometimes the darkest moments come right before everything changes. The chemotherapy started 2 weeks later. They put poison in my veins to kill the poison in my chest. I'd sit in the treatment chair, watching the 4 drip, surrounded by other people fighting their own battles. Some had family holding their hands. Some had friends bringing flowers. I had a paperback book and a water bottle. The nausea was worse than they'd warned me. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning, stumbling to the bathroom, my body rejecting everything.
Food.
Water.
Hope.
My hair fell out in clumps. First in the shower, then on my pillow, then in handfuls when I touched it. I stopped looking in mirrors. The house felt like a tomb. Too big. Too quiet. Too full of ghosts. I needed to get out before I disappeared completely. That's when I saw the sign at Miller's thrift store. Volunteers needed. I walked in on a Thursday morning, weak and dizzy, and asked if they'd take me. The manager, a woman named Ruth with kind eyes and rough hands, looked me up and down. She saw the headscarf, the pale skin, the exhaustion I couldn't hide. "Can you work Tuesdays and Thursdays?" she asked. "Yes." Then you're hired. I started the next week, folding donated clothes, sorting through boxes of books and dishes and forgotten treasures, helping customers find what they needed for prices they could afford. Some days the chemo left me so weak I had to sit on a stool behind the register. But I showed up anyway, because staying home meant drowning in silence. The work was simple, repetitive, and somehow it kept me breathing. An old man came in looking for a winter coat. I found him one that fit, warm and sturdy, for $12. He cried when I handed it to him. A young mother needed baby shoes. I dug through 3 boxes until I found a pair that would work. She hugged me. These small moments, these tiny acts of helping people who had even less than me, they became my reason to keep going. But one gray morning in October, I saw someone standing outside the window, watching me.
Tall.
Silver hair, expensive coat, eyes that seemed to carry entire stories. He stood there for a long moment, just staring. Then he walked toward the door. Something in my chest tightened. Not fear. Something else. Something that felt almost like recognition, even though I'd never seen him before in my life. The bell above the door chimed as he stepped inside. And that's when my entire world split open. Arthur Bellamy handed me a glass of water, while Ruth fanned me with a magazine. "I'm fine," I kept saying, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. "Mrs. Halden, I know this is overwhelming." Arthur crouched beside me, his voice steady. "But I need you to understand, this is real. Mr. Delacroix left very specific instructions." I took a sip of water. My mouth was dry as dust. "I don't know anyone named Henry Delacroix." "He knew you." Arthur reached into his coat again and pulled out another envelope. "He asked me to give you this when we met. He recorded it 3 months before he passed away." The envelope was thick, cream-colored, with my name written in shaky handwriting across the front. Ruth squeezed my shoulder. "Want me to stay, honey?" "No," I whispered. "I need to do this alone." Arthur helped me to a chair in the back room, away from the customers and the fluorescent lights. He placed the envelope in my hands and stepped back. "Take your time," he said. "I'll be right outside." I stared at the envelope for a long moment. Then I tore it open. Inside was a letter, handwritten on expensive paper. The ink was blue, the script shaky but elegant. "Dear Mrs. Halden," it began. "You won't remember me, but I have never forgotten you." My eyes blurred. I blinked hard and kept reading. In December of 1983, I was a homeless man sitting outside Clara's bakery in Burlington. It was snowing. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. I was planning to end my life that night. You walked out of that bakery with the brown paper bag. You saw me sitting there, and instead of looking away like everyone else, you stopped. You opened your bag, took out half of your sandwich, and handed it to me. "Here," you said. "Kindness costs nothing, sir, but it buys peace." Then you smiled and walked away. I sat there in the snow, holding that sandwich, and something shifted inside me. If a stranger could show me kindness when I had nothing to offer in return, maybe I wasn't as worthless as I thought. That sandwich saved my life, Mary. Not because I was hungry, though I was, but because it reminded me I was still human. Still worth saving. I checked myself into a shelter that night. Got clean. Found work. Built a business from nothing. Delacroix Industries grew into what it is today because of that moment. Because of you. I never married. Never had children. But I had purpose. And when I learned I was dying, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with everything I'd built. You are my sole heir, Mrs. Halden. $28 million. Use it however you wish. Build something beautiful. Help others the way you help me. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. With eternal gratitude, Henry Delacroix. The letter slipped from my hands. Tears poured down my face, hot, unstoppable, breaking through years of numbness. I remembered that day.
Barely.
I'd been Christmas shopping, grabbed lunch at Clara's, saw a man huddled against the wall. I'd given him half my turkey sandwich without thinking twice about it. It was just kindness. Nothing more. Nothing planned. And it had echoed across 40 years. Have you ever done something small that changed someone's entire life without knowing it? Comment below if you believe kindness has power, because what happened next proved it beyond doubt. Arthur came back in, saw my tears, and handed me a tissue. He watched you from a distance over the years, Arthur said quietly. Never interfered. Never made contact. But he wanted to make sure you were okay. When he learned about your divorce, your illness, he moved quickly to finalize everything before he passed. When did he die? I asked. 6 weeks ago. Pancreatic cancer. He was 74. I closed my eyes. A man I'd forgotten had spent decades remembering me. What do I do now? I whispered. Arthur smiled. Whatever you want, Mrs. Halden. For the first time in a long time, the choice is entirely yours. But before I could even process what that meant, my phone rang. The screen lit up with a name I hadn't seen in months. Gerald. I stared at the phone, my finger hovering over the decline button. Arthur noticed. Someone you don't want to talk to? My ex-husband. The words tasted bitter. Then don't answer. But something inside me, maybe curiosity, maybe spite, made me swipe to accept. Mary. Gerald's voice was smooth, practiced. I heard the news. Congratulations. Silence. I waited. Look, I know things ended badly between us, he continued. But I've had time to think, to realize I made mistakes. Big ones. And I'm hoping maybe we could talk. Maybe over dinner? I almost laughed. You want to have dinner? I miss you, Mary girl. I miss what we had. Mary girl. The nickname he'd used when we were young, when his love felt real. Now, it just sounded like manipulation. You left me when I had cancer, I said, my voice cold and clear. You stole from me. You let your girlfriend laugh at me when I called you for help. And now, 3 months later, you miss me? Clarissa was wrong to do that. We're not together anymore, actually. I don't care. Each word came out sharp. I don't care what happened with Clarissa. I don't care about your regrets. You made your choice, Gerald. You wanted freedom. You got it. But Mary. I'm hanging up now.
Don't call again.
I ended the call before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but this time from adrenaline, not weakness. Arthur was watching me carefully. Feel good? Actually, yes. He smiled. Good. Because in my experience, people like that don't give up easily. They'll try again. He was right. Over the next 2 weeks, Gerald called 6 more times. Sent flowers. Showed up at the thrift store once, but Ruth chased him out with a broom. Eleanor called too. Suddenly interested in how I was doing. Suddenly sorry she hadn't been there for me. Mom, I saw the news about your inheritance. That's amazing. I'd love to come visit. Maybe we could go shopping together? Miles sent a text. Hey Mom.
Been thinking about you.
Want to grab lunch? If you've ever watched people come running back after they threw you away, hit that like button. Because fake love reveals itself the moment real money shows up. But the most interesting call came from someone I'd never expected. A news reporter named Jessica Chin wanted to interview me. Your story is incredible, Mrs. Halden. A random act of kindness that paid back 40 years later? Our viewers would love to hear it. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to hide, to protect myself from attention. But another part, the part that had been invisible for so long, wanted to be seen. I'll do it, I told her. But on one condition. You tell the truth.
No exageración.
No drama. Just what actually happened. The interview aired on a Tuesday evening. I wore a simple blue dress, sat in my living room, and told the story exactly as it was. The reporter asked the question I'd been asking myself. What does it feel like to be rewarded for something you didn't even remember doing? I thought carefully before answering. It feels like proof that kindness matters. Even when nobody's watching. Even when it seems small. Every good thing we do ripples outward in ways we can't predict. The segment was only 7 minutes long, but it spread like wildfire. By Wednesday morning, the video had 2 million views. By Thursday, I was getting calls from talk shows, magazines, and strangers who wanted to share their own stories. And then Gerald called again. Mary, I saw the interview. You looked beautiful. I'm so proud of you.
Proud.
The word made my stomach turn. You don't get to be proud of me, I said quietly. You gave up that right when you walked out. I made a mistake, Mary. Can't you forgive me? Let me make it right. I took a deep breath. There's nothing to make right, Gerald. What's done is done. I'm moving forward. Without you. This time when I hung up, I blocked his number. Arthur called that evening. Mrs. Halden, we need to discuss your finances. The estate has been fully transferred, but there are some legal matters regarding your ex-husband that you should know about. My stomach dropped. What matters? Perhaps we should meet in person. Tomorrow morning, my office? I didn't sleep that night. Whatever Arthur needed to tell me, it wasn't good news. But nothing could have prepared me for what I learned the next day. Arthur's office was downtown, glass and steel and expensive furniture. I felt out of place in my thrift store cardigan. He gestured to a leather chair across from his desk. Coffee? Water? Just tell me what's wrong. He pulled out a folder. Your ex-husband and his business partner, Clarissa Dunn, are under investigation for real estate fraud. It seems they've been running a scheme for the past 3 years. Forging signatures, inflating property values, pocketing the difference. My chest tightened. Including mine?
Yes.
The properties they sold using your forged signature are part of the case. The district attorney wants to speak with you. You're not in trouble, he added quickly. You're a victim, but your testimony could help put them away. I sat back, processing. Gerald wasn't just a cheater. He was a criminal. There's more, Arthur said. Their firm collapsed 2 days ago. Investors pulled out. Creditors are circling. From what I understand, they're about to lose everything. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt hollow. I don't want revenge, I said quietly. I just want them out of my life. Arthur nodded. The choice is yours. But the DA will likely contact you regardless. I left his office and drove home in silence. The city looked different now. Sharper, clearer. Like I'd been seeing through fog for years, and someone finally turned on the lights. That night, Eleanor called. Mom, did you hear about Dad? About the investigation? I heard. He's asking for money. Says he needs help with legal fees. Her voice was small. I don't have anything to give him. Neither do I said. But you just inherited. I'm not giving him a cent, Eleanor. My voice was firm. He made his choices. He can live with the consequences. Silence. Then, quietly, I'm sorry, Mom, for not being there, for taking his side. I was wrong. The apology caught me off guard. Why now? Because I finally see who he really is. And I see who you've always been. I just wish I'd seen it sooner. We talked for an hour that night. Really talked. For the first time in years. Miles called the next day with his own apology. Smaller, more hesitant, but genuine. My children were coming back. Not because of money, but because the truth had finally forced them to see clearly. Over the next few weeks, I met with lawyers, gave testimony, watched as Gerald's empire crumbled on the evening news. His face appeared on screen, older, grayer, frightened. Clarissa stood beside him, both of them flanked by attorneys, both of them facing years in prison. Ruth was watching with me at the thrift store. How do you feel? Tired, I admitted, but free. The trial would take months. But I didn't need to see the ending to know I'd already won. Would you stay to watch karma play out, or walk away with your peace intact? Drop your answer in the comments, because what I chose to do next shocked everyone. The DA offered me a chance to testify in person at the trial, to face Gerald in court and tell the judge exactly what he'd done to me. I thought about it for days. Imagined walking into that courtroom, seeing him squirm, watching him finally face justice.
But then I realized something.
He'd already taken 42 years of my life. I wasn't giving him another second. I'll submit a written statement, I told the prosecutor. But I'm not appearing in person. I'm done watching him. Done letting him take up space in my mind. She looked surprised. Are you sure? Your testimony would be powerful. I'm sure. Gerald and Clarissa were convicted 3 months later. Fraud, forgery, embezzlement. Gerald got 7 years. Clarissa got 5. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I didn't even read the full verdict. Instead, I did something better. I bought the old public library where I'd worked as a young woman. The building had been abandoned for years, windows broken, books long gone. I renovated it from the ground up. New floors, new shelves, new computers. I filled it with books, thousands of them, and opened it to the community for free. The sign above the door read, Delacroix Memorial Library. Open to all. On opening day, over 200 people showed up. Families, students, elderly folks who remembered when it was open before. Ruth stood beside me, tears in her eyes. Henry would be proud. I hope so. But the library was just the beginning. I bought a property on the edge of town, 5 acres with an old farmhouse. I turned it into a shelter for women escaping abuse, recovering from loss, rebuilding after divorce. I called it Birchwood Haven. The first resident was a woman named Angela. She arrived with 2 kids, a black eye, and a garbage bag of clothes. "Is this real?" she asked, standing in the doorway. "Can we really stay?" "As long as you need," I told her. "You're safe here." Watching her cry, not from pain but from relief, felt better than any revenge ever could. Over the next year, I helped 32 women and their children. Gave them shelter, counseling, job training, a chance to start over. I donated anonymously to Gerald's former employees who'd lost their jobs when his company collapsed. Paid their rent, covered their bills, helped them find new work. People asked why I'd help people connected to him. "They didn't hurt me," I said. "He did. They're just trying to survive, same as me." If you believe in lifting others instead of tearing enemies down, drop a like. Because quiet justice is louder than any courtroom verdict. Eleanor started volunteering at Birchwood Haven on weekends. Miles donated furniture and helped with repairs. My children were back. Not perfectly. Not without scars. But they were trying. One afternoon, Eleanor asked me something while we sorted donated clothes. "Mom, do you hate him?" "Dad, I mean." I folded a sweater carefully, thinking, no. Hating him would mean he still matters. He doesn't. He's just a man who made bad choices and has to live with them now. She nodded slowly. "I think that's the healthiest thing I've ever heard you say." Maybe it was. Maybe letting go wasn't about forgiveness or revenge. Maybe it was just about choosing peace over poison. As for Gerald, I heard through Eleanor that prison was hard on him. That he'd aged badly, lost weight, spent his days in regret. I didn't visit. Didn't write. Didn't send a message through the kids. He was a chapter I'd closed. And I was busy writing new ones. But there was still one more person I needed to face before my story could truly end. 6 months after the trial, I received a letter. It came in a plain envelope, postmarked from the state prison. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Gerald. I almost threw it away without opening it. But curiosity won. Inside was a single page, his writing shaky and small. "Mary, I know I have no right to ask for anything from you. I know what I did. I know what I destroyed. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect a response. I just wanted you to know that you were right. About everything. Clarissa never loved me. She was using me the whole time. And now I'm sitting in a cell, alone, realizing I threw away the only real thing I ever had. You. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Gerald." I read it twice. Then I folded it, put it back in the envelope, and filed it away in a drawer I'd probably never open again. He wanted forgiveness. Absolution. Some sign that his apology meant something. But I didn't know him that. I didn't know him anything. I sat on my porch that evening, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. The garden I'd planted was blooming, lavender and roses and wildflowers. From inside Birchwood Haven, I could hear laughter. Children playing. Women talking over dinner. My hair had grown back, softer and grayer than before. My body was still healing, still fighting, but stronger now. The cancer was in remission. The doctors called it a miracle. I called it stubbornness. Ruth visited that evening, bringing fresh bread from the bakery. We sat together in comfortable silence, sipping tea and watching the fireflies. You did it, she said quietly. You survived. We did, I corrected. I couldn't have done this alone. She squeezed my hand. The next morning, Arthur called with news. Mrs. Halden, there's interest from a publisher. They want to buy your story. Turn it into a book. A book. Your interview went viral. People are inspired. They want to know more, how you turned pain into purpose, how you chose grace over bitterness. I thought about it, about all the women in shelters who needed hope, about all the people drowning in betrayal who needed to know they could survive. I'll do it, I said. But only if the proceeds go to Birchwood Haven. And only if it's honest.
No fairy tale ending.
Just the truth.
Deal.
The book came out 8 months later. It wasn't a bestseller, but it reached the people who needed it. I got letters from women who'd left abusive marriages, from cancer survivors, from people who'd been betrayed and thought they'd never recover. Each letter reminded me why kindness mattered, why choosing to help others, even when you're hurting, creates ripples you can't predict. Henry Delacroix gave me $28 million. But your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And remember, every act of kindness you give plants a seed. You might not see it bloom tomorrow, but somewhere, someday it will. Thank you for being part of this family. Until next time, choose kindness.
Choose peace. Choose to keep going.